Today is the, what do we got today? The 17th of May. Welcome to Credit Versio's Q&A Live. Sorry for the delay there. Had some technological issues and I'm still trying to put everything together, but we're going to have a good live Q&A for you today. All right, I just need to bring up one more thing here. Bear with me. Let's see. All right, see, we got a handful of people jumping on. Thank you very much. Let's see. Let's take a couple of minutes here. Take a second, introduce yourself, say hello, let me know where you're from. Okay, here we go. Now things are getting put together. All right, very good. So today we're going to do a walkthrough through the Credit Versio software. And okay, great. Facebook is up. Everybody's looking good. Just want to make sure that everybody can see me on YouTube. Let me know if you have any audio problems, any video problems. Sean, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome. All right, here we go. You're not supposed to be doing this eCam live on Wi-Fi, and unfortunately, that's what the delay was. Our hard line just went dead. Our Wi-Fi is looking good, though. So let's cross our fingers and hope that we don't have any system problems today. All right. Very good. Okay, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate it. And this time is all about you. I'm here to answer any questions you have about Credit Versio, about credit scores. I'm also a certified FICO Pro instructor. Not a lot of us around anymore. The FICO certification course went extinct in 2015, and I slid in right in 2014. Essentially what that means is I'm qualified to teach FICO, and I stay up on top of all the FICO scores. Same thing with Vantage Score, although there's no cert for that. I've spent a tremendous amount of time studying FICO, Vantage Score as well, and learning from Vantage Score people. So, all right, let's see here. Andre, I'm interested in getting a partnership with Credit Versio, white label, what are the requirements? So we're really only working with bigger companies right now. Ideally, you want to be introduced to us through Smart Credit. So Smart Credit is our 3B partner. If you've got a co-brand or a white label account with them, what you want to do is reach out to your Smart Credit rep and say, hey, I want to meet I want to talk to Credit Versio to do a white label, and they're going to tell you what the qualifications are and what you need to have as a company to determine whether or not we'd be a good fit for you. So, but yeah, we're always looking for great partners with just a certain size company that we have to work with. And matter of fact, we got told that today. Some great news that's coming up is we are in works to partner with Self, and I think that's a very exciting thing. But the same thing with Self. They're like, hey, you got to have 100,000 plus visitors per month. We want X amount of active clients, and we meet all that criteria. So now we're talking to Self, which I think is one of the better, probably the best product in that category out there. Okay, Hannah, I have 6 collections. I send to Mini Dispute, and it's not removed it. Tell me what I can do to remove my collection from my credit report, please. Thank you. So one of the misnomers, Hannah, in the credit repair space is that anything can be removed just at a whim, and that's actually not true. It's true that anything can be deleted from a credit report, but there's a qualifier to that, and that qualifier is anything can be deleted provided it's either erroneous, outdated, incomplete, or unverifiable. That's right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And essentially what you're doing in a dispute process is you're asking questions. In fact, I'm going to do a demo here in a few minutes, and you can see, if you've not seen already using Credit Versio, that sometimes just getting the dispute started and asking that collection company to prove that they have a legal right to collect. Now that's 100% fair under what's called the FDCPA. That's the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And one of the things that a collection company has to do is they have to prove that there's a chain of ownership. And they don't have to provide much. They just have to provide documentation saying that they were either assigned the debt from the original creditor or they bought the debt from the original creditor. One of the big misunderstandings in this space is that that your agreement, that your debt was with the original creditor, and once that's over, that there's no obligation to pay anymore. Like I've seen horrible advice being given by people saying, "Oh, don't never pay a collection. Don't talk to collection companies." It's actually not true. Well, let me extend that a little bit. I've heard people say, "Well, you don't have to pay a collection. It's illegal for them to collect, and so on and so forth." It's 100% not true. A debt is an asset, meaning just like I could sell, I don't know, my computer right here, my MacBook Pro. If I wanted to sell that, I can. It's my asset. I own it. Same thing if, say, American Express has a debt. Say it's a $5,000 debt. It's a charge off. That debt is an asset, and if they want to sell that to a collection company for whatever price they can get for it, they are fully capable of doing that. And now that collection company becomes your new creditor. That is 100% legal. So now, how can you get things deleted from a credit report? The best way is follow the dispute processing in Credit Versio. So Credit Versio is doing a couple of things. It knows how to dispute collections. This is not rocket science. Okay, it's programmed to do what's been working best for the last better part of 20 years. And it's also looking for errors in your credit report, discrepancies across the bureaus, mistakes that the data furnisher, aka collection company, might have made in the process. Also, if they can't verify the information, sometimes these things get deleted, sometimes they don't get deleted. Statistically, across the board in Credit Versio, again, this is just a large number stat within Credit Versio. About 67% of collections that are deleted are disputed get deleted. Now, that means that 33% of collections don't get deleted. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a 67% deletion rate. This is a statistic that's been taken from 100,000 plus clients that we analyzed who went through a 4-round dispute process. So you never really know what that collection company has got. But the thing I can promise you, though, Hannah, is that the best dispute strategy is the strategy that Credit Versio is gonna present to you. And then fingers crossed that you have some success. If you don't have success, then there's no obligation on the part of the collection company to delete something that is reporting accurately and has been verified. Okay, so Todd, let's see. I sent off my first round of disputes as a way to rush the process. No, there's not a way to rush the process. This is all dictated by federal law. It's been around since 1970. I don't want to wait 30 days if possible. Yes, you do. Here's why you want to wait 30 days. Here's why Credit Versio, a great question, by the way. I'm not trying to pick on you, Todd. I want to instill in you why things take the time that they do. And this is a really, really important fact that oddly, there's a lot of people who are in the credit repair space that don't know this. One of the things that happens, let me just walk you through the process. So when you create your Credit Versio account, you have a 40-day timeline. So why is it 40 days? Well, a lot of people sign up on a Thursday or a Friday or a Wednesday, and they're like, hey, this is really cool, but I want to focus all my attention on this, and I'm gonna focus on this on Saturday. So they sign up on a Wednesday. They don't start creating their dispute letters till Saturday, and they don't drop them in the mail till Sunday. Well, there's no mail on Sunday typically, and the letters don't go out till Monday. So now we're talking about 4 or 5 days that have gone by, and now it's going to take 3, maybe 4 days to get to the bureaus and get processed. So that's why we give you that 10-day buffer there, because that's what happens a lot of the times. It's very rare that somebody signs up on a Monday, does all their dispute letters on a Monday, and has the letters out on a Monday or a Tuesday. I mean, it happens, but it's not the norm. Life gets in the way. People have families, people have jobs, people have things that happen. Okay, so fair enough. Now, why the 30 days? This is why Credit Versio is going to wait that full 30 days, and why you want to wait that full 30 days. It's true, Todd, that you might have gotten a response from the credit bureaus in that, maybe within 2 weeks, sometimes maybe faster. But here's the problem with that. That data furnisher, that creditor that you disputed with, that is an open dispute for 30 days. Now, they can make an initial decision and tell that to the bureaus, like, hey, we've decided to delete this, or we've decided to withhold this And then during the dispute process, say that next week or two, they're like, oh, you know what? Actually, we're going to reverse our decision on this because we found some information, or there was a little bit of a delay, or we had an auto system response, but now we've looked at it manually, and we're not going to delete that. Or we told you we weren't going to delete it, and we are. So even though you have a response from the credit bureau, it does not mean that is the final response in that 30 days. They do change their mind every now and then. So that's why you want to wait that full 30 days. Here's why it's even particularly important when you're using Credit Versio. Let's just say you get all your responses from TransUnion and maybe Equifax, but you don't get, or Experian, and Equifax is the slow one. That kind of happens sometimes. So maybe some changes were made last minute, and now you got round two coming in. Now round two comes in, and fortunately, because Credit Versio waited for 40 days, it gave that full 30-day timeline. Now those little changes that came in last minute are on your most recent credit report. And if those changes strengthen the dispute all across all three bureaus, if there's a data discrepancy, if there's something that's just not right, if there's some kind of an omission, Credit Versio software is going to catch that, and it makes for a more powerful dispute. So trust me, Todd, I got into the credit repair space as a customer 10 years ago, and I know what it is like to want this done fast, but it is dictated by federal law, and that's why Credit Versio works at the pace that it does. I'm just going to grab my water over here. Hold on. Okay. All right, Todd, great question. Minerva, I can't even connect with Credit Smart. I'm assuming you mean Smart Credit. I don't know how to answer that. We're talking about two totally different platforms. We're not owned by Smart Credit. You know, they don't own us. We don't owe them. They're two separate companies. Same thing with Identity IQ. Same thing with the other three bureau monitoring service providers that we can mesh with. If you have an issue with them, you're going to have to reach out to them directly. It's probably some kind of an identity problem. Maybe you had an existing account in the past. Typically, when there's an error during the enrollment process, because you can enroll in Smart Credit right there in Credit Versio, they'll tell you that there's an issue, and they'll give you their 800 number. In fact, I'll give it to you right now. It's if you have something to write it down. If not, you can always rewind this and just watch it over again, or you can reach out to us at support@creditversio.com. So their number is 877, was it 372-3895, and just let them know you're trying to get started with Credit Versio. You're trying to create a Smart Credit account. They're really good. Their customer service is really, really, really good. Okay. Shannon, okay. Let's see. I have Credit Versio. I sent off my first round of letters. I checked credit on other sites. Again, I don't know how many times I've said this in the tutorial videos. If you want to check scores, you're looking at different scoring models against different platforms on different days. I think I already know where this is going. You're going to talk about a score change. Scores went up. My credit score has went up. It dropped 59 points. I guess last night. I'm waiting for my credit report to update on Credit Versio. Yeah. So there's no way for me to speculate why that happened. So when you're going through the repair process, the thousands of times that I've actually heard this same comment, it's because somebody got a different score from a different platform on a different day. Now, what do I mean by different score? I mean, sometimes they're looking at the most common one is they have Experian, like what I've got. That's a FICO 8 score. And they're looking at their Smart Credit. That's a Vantage 3 score. The difference is like Celsius versus Fahrenheit. Or they're looking at Credit Karma. Now, even though that's a Vantage 3.0 score, what day did that come in? So you don't have a credit score. Your credit score is a query, meaning it can change from day to day to day to day based on the data furnishers and what information they're placing on your credit report at that moment. So a 59-point drop, who knows what that's from? One of the things that you can always be rest assured about is the dispute process is not punitive, meaning there's nothing you can do in the dispute process to drop your score. Your score will always come from the accounts on your credit report. Now, if you deleted something that was very old, maybe now your age of accounts is 15% of your score. You got about 82 points sitting there. That's FICO's version. It's pretty close to the same thing in Vantage Score. So if maybe you challenged an old charge off that had some great history, maybe that got deleted. That could account for it. The number one reason why people see scores drop has nothing to do with their repair process. It has to do with credit card debt. I can't tell you how many hundreds, maybe even 1,000 plus times I've talked to people and they're like, hey, my score dropped 70 points. What happened? What'd you guys do? And I'm like, that's because you have a $300 limit on your credit card. It was zero last month, your balance, and now it's $295. And so your utilization just went to 99%. And that's why your score dropped. So you want to really triage your credit report and look at what's different this month. Again, get that credit report when it comes into Credit Versio and compare it to the one from last month. And all you have to do is go into my history section and you can see your report side by side, and it'll be pretty easy to see what happened. Okay. Let's see. Question: do you always need to update personal information before processing a factual data dispute? No. Does this increase your chances of getting removals? 100% no. That is a credit repair myth that has been around. By the way, that's something that I believed way back in the day when I first got started in credit repair. I mean, literally that was taught and is still taught by people in the credit repair space because they learned it from a credit repair person who learned it from a credit repair person who learned it. It's actually factually inaccurate, and here's why. And if you've never been on this live, when I've had John Olsheimer on with me, John Olsheimer used to work for FICO and he used to work for Equifax. I've also had many times I've had Steve Rigger, who used to run the entire West Coast dispute division for TransUnion. What is really important in this space, and it's the reason why I come on here every Wednesday and I do these lives, is there's so much bad information in the credit repair space. There's so much mythical stuff that's out there, and it's just the nature of the industry. It's very bizarre, it's very funny, but that's very much the way it is. And I could rattle on for hours about all the things that are done in credit repair that people think are accurate and functional and useful to do, and they 100% are not. I won't go into the reasons why people do it, but let me just give you an honest answer to your question. The credit bureaus they use something called matching logic. Equifax alone has 30,000 permutations of data to link you to your debts. Now, this might be Investor Gadget. Investor Gadget, I like that name. That's great. Now, this might be a question you're asking for other reasons, but typically when people ask me, hey, should I remove old addresses? Should I update my name? Somehow believing that's going to disassociate themselves from their debt. And nothing could be further from the truth. And think about it for a second. You wouldn't even want it to work that way. Let's say that you were a woman who just got married and just moved. So you changed your name and you have a new address, and you got rid of the maiden name, okay, and you got rid of your old address. If you had nothing but good credit, well, what would that mean? Does that mean that all of your good credit would now be expunged from your credit report because you changed your name and you removed your old addresses? No, you would never want that to happen. Credit reporting would be an unmitigated disaster if that was the case. If you could just that easily disassociate yourself from any credit. So Equifax, as I said, 30,000 permutations, data points they use in their matching logic to connect you to your debts. Your name and address are just two of them. Okay, so there's no way that you're shaking yourself free from any of this stuff just by changing your name. So now, I'm not saying that it isn't a good thing to go into Credit Versio, go into the tutorial section. There's a place called templates. In fact, I'll just share the screen with you real quick because I had this up ready to go. Oh, here we go. Now, this is my staging area. It's possible that what I'm going to show you isn't there, but I want to show you where to find it. So right here in tutorials, I'm going to click that. And here in templates, click that. And there should be, so this is on a testing server. Okay, so down actually right about here is a letter called personal update personal information or update personal information update letter, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to write and what ID you need to include for uh, for the bureaus to update your personal information. Now, yes, it's a good thing to do. Just just to have a nice clean. It's called a PII section. You look at the top of your credit report. It says personal identifiable information, and that's your first name, last name, date of birth, employment history, addresses, aliases, things like that. Okay. Todd, great information. Any tips for someone who's selling and buying a house? I want the best interest rate, so I was going to wait and dispute some items before I get pre-approved. Yeah, this is a great plan. One of the things to keep in mind, Todd, is that the, the FICO models that are being used that are they're mandated by FHFA are super old. They're 20 years old. And one of the things that I talk about a bit is how, and this is really a big breakthrough, that FHFA is now going to allow for FICO 10T and Vantage 4.0, and they're going to use a bi-merge, not a tri-merge. And that's going to probably take another 18 to 24 months before that kicks in. So it's probably not going to apply to you. You'll probably buy long before that. So the thing you want to take in consideration is, well, what are these older FICO models sensitive to? And the number one thing that they're really sensitive to, well, a couple things actually, but a big one is credit card utilization. So they're going to look at your DTI, your debt to income ratio, and what those FICO models really like is they like a credit card balance ideally at 0 or 1%, but they will start to penalize you depending on some other factors right when you hit about that 7% utilization. So that utilization is your credit limits relative to your credit balances. So for example, if all of my credit together, credit cards just for easy math is $100, let's just say, and I have a $7 balance, that's a 7% utilization. So you want to ideally pay your credit cards off. I know people say, well, leave 1%. Yeah, okay, so maybe you might fudge a couple extra points if you can hit that magical 1%, but I wouldn't go chasing it like it's some golden fleece or something like that. Just pay off your credit card debts. And also understand that unlike the contemporary scoring models like FICO 8, 9, 10, 10T, Vantage Score 3.0, Vantage Score 4.0, all of those I just named ignore collections that have been paid. So even though they're cosmetically there on your credit report, those scoring models just ignore, and they don't factor paid collections into your credit score. The old FICO models that are going to be used for your mortgage do. They don't care if you paid off a collection or not. So I'm not saying, Todd, that you've got collections, but let's just suppose that you or everybody else who's watching has some collections on their credit report. They want to go into a mortgage pre-qualification. What I would do is dispute them, use Credit Versio to dispute them. If they can come off, Credit Versio will figure out a way to do it. Make sure you go about 4, maybe 5 rounds. Now, you go through 4 or 5 rounds, you have really just wrung out every possibility that exists in order to get the collection deleted. If it's still there, then you want to move to a pay for delete if you can. And I would never tell them you're looking to buy a home. Don't like appeal to their mercy because they don't have any. Imagine what your life would be like if you were that phone person, you were that debt collector that talks to people all day. I mean, can you imagine a more like maligned and a difficult job than that role? So, just respect the fact that these people probably have pretty hard lives and they might not have a whole lot of sympathy or empathy for you and where you are. So what I would do is I would call up and say, let's say I had $1,000 collection from, I don't know, Verizon. Verizon's not a great example. They tend to handle their own stuff. Let's just say I'll use the same example I used before. Let's say it's American Express. And I call up and I say, hey, yeah, you know what? I've had this debt over my head for a while. I got a little extra money, not a lot. I want to clear this out, but listen, it's a really no benefit to me to pay it. It's on my credit report. It's going to stay on my credit report if I pay it. I know that. You know that. So why don't we do this? I got $400 right now. I can pay it to you right now. But here's the agreement. The agreement is I need you guys to delete this from all 3 credit bureaus. And I need you to send me something either in an email or physical mail so I have a copy, just so I know for sure, that we both have an agreement. And then upon receiving that, and you can email that to me right now, and then I'll give you a credit card over the phone or however you want me to pay you, and we can make this whole thing go away. That's what I would do. I don't even know if I'd start at $400. I would say, hey, I got $200. Well, they might not take that, but just keep in mind that a lot of these collection companies pay pennies on the dollars for these debts. They might have bought that $1,000 debt for $50, $75. So start low, and like they come back, and the worst case scenario, they're gonna say no. They'll come back. I want 800. So you just negotiate it down, but just make sure that pay for delete is part of that. Now, some companies will not do it. In fact, no collection company is supposed to do it. It's actually mandated in what's called the Credit Reporting Resource Guide. That's the guide that's used that's the trade association guide that everybody's supposed to follow. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens all the time. At the end of the day, they just want their money. They don't really give a darn about what's on your credit report, apart from the fact that they can hang that over your head to motivate you to pay them off. So anyway, Todd, I hope that was helpful. That's what I would do if I was back in that situation again. I had to do that a couple of times way back in the day with collections at the company that I was with at the time that was doing my repair. A lot of stuff came off. About 60% of what was deleted came off, and then I had to. Some of it, honestly, I just waited for it to age off. I'm not proud of it. That's what I did. And then there were a few things where I'm like, let me just get this thing settled. It was a small enough dollar amount, and I was able to take care of it. Okay, Mr. Gadget, what exactly can we ask for from the collection agency to prove the debt is verified, and if they will fail to present it? You don't really have to do much of anything. There's a standard method of response in debt validation, Investor Gadget, that they will give you in a letter. It's going to say, we own this debt. We got the debt from X and X creditor on such and such date. Your balance is this, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, you're going to know it when you see it. You don't have to, and this is, again, remember, I talk heavy about credit repair myth, and I'm going to bring up another one. People will ask for, well, I need the document with my original signature. No, they don't. There's nowhere in the FDC, nowhere in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act or the Fair Credit Reporting Act does it say that they have to provide that. They don't have to provide. There's no reasonable expectation under the law for them to provide that. All they need to provide is a document saying that they own the debt. They're going to reference your account number. They're going to reference the original creditor, and that to them, that is legit. And if, God forbid, they decided to take you to court, that's a satisfactory document right there. That would convince any judge that they do have a chain of ownership of that document, of that debt. Okay. Let's see. Todd. Awesome. I'd already disputed some items electronically when I found out about your software. Is it okay to send the dispute letter off if I already have an active electronic dispute? Yes, that's perfectly fine. I would just wait until that dispute ends. One of the things about electronic disputes that are really not great, and it's funny, Todd, I don't get discouraged at this, but I mentioned early on, maybe if you were on the program, maybe you heard me say this, but I've had two guys on this live that both work at bureaus, both worked in dispute resolution at the bureaus. They both said, don't do electronic disputes, do paper disputes. And the reason for that is electronic disputes kind of pigeonhole you into a very specific type of disputes, a drop-down menu. And they're very limited to what you can do. And also, if you didn't read the fine print, what a lot of those electronic disputes say is that you have to agree. You ahead of time agree to whatever outcome is of that dispute. So if they come back and effectively say, go kick cans, then you can't dispute it again unless you have a completely different dispute reason. Meaning
You can't follow up and just say, I disagree with your outcome, with your decision. Tell me how you came to that conclusion. Well, you can do that with paper, but you can't do it with electronic dispute because you agreed in the fine print to not do that. So make no mistake, online disputes are not for you and me. They're for the bureaus, and they're for. And I'm not saying the bureaus are the enemy. Okay, I'm not saying that your collection companies or your data furnishers, your creditors. I'm not saying that they're the enemy. What I'm saying is that if you're going to jump into their system, you're going to have to comply with the way that they want to do things. And agreeing to those terms and conditions, whatever they are, is something that you probably don't want to do. So stick with paper. Now, circling all the way back around, Todd, the answer to your question is, yeah, I would wait for that dispute to end. So maybe 30 days or so. With electronic disputes, usually that's a little bit more solid than well, I won't go off on that tangent because it's not necessary. Right when you get a response from them, whether it's if it's electronic or through the mail, then I would go with your paper disputes and stick with paper. I know it's barbaric, it's archaic. I mean, here we are in 2023, and everything is done digitally these days. I mean, you can buy, like when I bought my house, except for when I was in the title company, I did it all on this. Just click this, so sign, click, 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 accept, 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 and then and then here we are doing our disputes, and we have to print up a letter and put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it. But the reason why we're doing that is that the laws that allow you and me to challenge things on our credit report was written in the 1970s. No internet in the 70s. So the legal standard, and federal law doesn't move fast, as we all know, is still paper. And paper is still the best. And anybody you ask, from a bureau level to an attorney to anybody who's in this business that knows what they're doing, they're going to give you the same answer. Stick with paper. All right. So I think I tackled pretty much all the questions. We're 32 minutes in. That's great. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you like a little walkthrough on the software, because there's always questions about how to use the software. Let me just make sure it didn't log me out. Okay, great, it didn't. And then, by the way, that doesn't mean I'm not going to answer your questions. So I can see everybody's questions on here, so feel free to pop them up. And then I'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay. Wilson Jones, how you doing? Good to have you here. Why are negative items that have been paid off through negotiations still show up as negative? Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I love it. Here's why. A credit report is like a scribe. A credit report is a historical document. And what it does is it keeps a ledger of all the things that you've done. So at the end of the day, Wilson, a credit report is a story. I've said this many times. A credit report is the story of you. And that story is there specifically for potential lenders. Anybody who wants to know what kind of a credit risk you are, they want to know if you had a collection, if you went if you went through a spell, like I did back 10 years ago, where things got rough, or maybe I'm not particularly responsible at paying my bills. I don't prioritize that. It's just maybe that's my lifestyle. There's plenty of people out there that are like that. They're like, oh, I paid it late. Oh, I paid it late though. Well, that activity is tracked on a credit report so that it can be presented to whatever lender, whatever institution you're going to even if it's utilities. It could be even a job. A lot of security jobs are going to look at your credit report. They don't see your score, but they can see what's on there, and they want to know, who's David Michalek? What happens when he's entrusted with credit? Who's Wilson Jones? What does Wilson Jones do when somebody entrusts him with credit? What does he do? So that's what a credit report is. Now, even though we live in a day and an age in a society where you can make good on things that we've done in the past that were not great. For example, I went through a rough time. I came into credit repair as a customer, as a credit repair customer. I had a lot of stuff on there that I just defaulted on. That's my story, and it's an honest representation of who I was at that time for anybody wanting to know what kind of a risk am I. Now, if I swing back around and I start clearing out that data, if I start paying things off, the natural response for you, Wilson, and for me is like, I've redeemed myself in a way. I made good on a debt that I owed, that I defaulted on, but now we're good. Now we're settled. And that's fair. Fair is fair. That's an honest way to view that transaction. The problem is that's not the way a credit report views it. That's not the way a lender views it. Even though you came back and made good, okay, that's a good thing, but they want to know what happened there. That this is something that happened in time. Because there are some creditors that they don't want to see any of that. I'll give you a great example. American Express is one. American Express was one of the cards that I unfortunately defaulted on back in the day. Now, even though that was one of the accounts that was successfully deleted during the repair process, they have a ledger of that. They still have a record of that. It's one of the reasons why I've never applied for an American Express card again, even though I want one. Now, there's some conflicting data on that. Maybe they'd give me one, maybe they wouldn't, now that my credit's very strong. But they want to know that story on your credit report. Sticking with American Express as an example, let's say you filed bankruptcy 9 years ago. Okay, so it's getting ready to fall off. You might have done a fantastic job of recovering, and your scores might be in the high 700s, but still, American Express, especially their higher tier cards, if I had a bankruptcy that was 9 years old, they will decline me, even though I may have done a great job of rebuilding, even though I may have settled some debts. Although, I mean, you wouldn't really do that in a bankruptcy example, but just talking about how you can recover and how you can turn around. They have that right. They want to know what's on there so they can make an informed decision. Let's see. Wilson, okay, I remember on one of the live streams you said that when an item comes to its end, the time it'll fall off, do we need to remind them to do it? I have an item that's due to fall off this month, but it's still there. So no, you don't have to remind them. There's something baked into to every credit report. Now, you and I don't see this because technically we don't see credit reports. We see something, we call it a credit report, but it's actually called a consumer credit disclosure. So we see an abbreviated form of our credit. One of the things that's kind of baked in the Metro 2 code that makes up our credit report is something called the DOFD. It's a date of first default. So it's that date that marks the beginning of the default of that count. It always starts with that first 30-day late. So you go 30, then maybe 60, 90, 120, 150, whatever the trajectory was for the default of that account. That 7-year mark goes back to that 30 days right there. Now, what's really common, Wilson, is when I hear what you just wrote, typically people have they see a different date, or they think that date is actually older than what it really is. Unfortunately, we can't see the DOFD on our credit reports. So we might look at like last activity date, or we might look at something else. Or we kind of imagine that this is when I stopped paying it, so it should be 7 years. But that's not a date that you really have to worry about. As a rule of thumb, credit bureaus tend to drop these things off at the 6-year, 9-month mark. They even do it before the 7-year mark, just to protect themselves. And they know exactly when that is. So they are looking at the DOFD, whatever that date is, and that will drop off. It's very, very rare. I mean, I can't imagine under what circumstances it would remain unless somehow it was artificially re-aged. But I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's nowadays with Metro 2 and everything that's how things are being reported. It's almost unheard of. Okay. Hope that answers your question. Well, you're saying thanks, so it looks like maybe it did. All right. I'm happy to expand on that if you want to go into any more depth. All right. Let's go back over to, I haven't done this in a while. Oh, Todd. Oh, my goodness. All right. I was just about to go in, and Todd's got a novel for me. Let me see here. I'm going to have to probably put this up twice, Todd. Okay. I co-signed on something with my recently deceased mother. She was disabled, but making payments at my older sibling was her POA. Okay. I disputed the account with your software, but I don't know if the recommended letter reason was the best option. Do you prefer we dispute items with the recommended reason from the AI technology, or change it to what we think it should be? I feel that I am not that responsible. Okay, so my answer is always this: the best dispute reason is the one that explains why the account shouldn't be there. And what Credit Versio is brilliant at doing is it's brilliant at being able to break down what's on your credit report across all three credit bureaus. It will find mistakes, it will find errors, it will find discrepancies. However, it doesn't know the backstory. It has no idea how the account got there. It doesn't know whether or not it's really your debt. It doesn't know the terms, the conditions of that item. All it knows is the raw data that's on the credit report, which, by the way, is when you're doing a factual dispute, that's how things tend to get deleted most of the time. Either that, or the data furnisher, aka the creditor, is not able to verify the information. But Todd, if you know that this is incorrect for reasons that are just plainly not on the credit report, then you want to select a custom reason. That's an option. So you select the account, you go to the next page, it'll present to you the dispute reasons. Then you click on the dispute reason, you're going to get a drop down. And there's a bunch of other options that are available to you, including, and you never know, one of the options that's in the drop down might be a better fit for you, depending on the circumstances. Or you can select custom reason and then write up your reason. In fact, why don't we just do a little demo right here? I know you're familiar with the software, but we got a bunch of people on, so let's just go through it. So I'll hit create dispute letter. Okay, I'll just click one for the moment. I'll click Macy's. We'll go next. Here's the dispute reason. Add a dispute reason. Okay. Like I said, bear with me here. We're on a staging platform. Here we go. So here's the suggested reason, and I got a custom reason right there for you, Todd. So right here, I can add in whatever I want. But you can see I have other options. I don't remember being late, status verification request, it's victim identity theft. I mean, don't use this unless you have proper documentation. Balance was paid, incorrect balance, never late. So anyway, you have other options down here that you can choose. And if all else fails, and people do use this option, just go with a custom reason. And right there, you can just write in your own reason. It's a great thing about the software. It's very, very flexible. It's going to go for what it thinks is the best dispute reason based on what's on the credit report. But like I said, you know what's going on with the account. Let's see, Investor Gadget. Why can't a secured account such as a secured credit card or, for example, self-lender report late or negative if the money was paid upfront to secure the account? Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just put it one more time. The reason is they don't look at it like that. When you go into an agreement with a secured card, what they're securing themselves from Investor Gadget is just default on the debt. So you go into it behaving as though it's an unsecured credit card, meaning you get to charge whatever items on it at whatever to the level of whatever limit you have if you choose to do so. But you also have to honor all the terms and conditions. You have to honor the agreement of that card, regardless of whether or not you've got a balance that's securing that card or not. So they're going to treat it just like any other credit card. So if there's late payments, they will mark late payments. They're not going to go into your deposit and grab that payment. That's not the way that it works. Again, it's just to kind of buffer them from the risk of extending a credit card in an area where there might be some question as to the probability of being paid back. That's why they can do that. Okay, Todd, yeah, you're referring to the drop-down menu, of course. Okay, Wilson, final question. How do you deal with items that show no late payments, never received a statement for a payment, but it's in collections? So there's not going to be a late payment history on your collections. It's a debt account. Just the bulk of the balance has been sold off or assigned over to the collection company. They're not going to have a late payment history on your collections. So that's just a different kind of dispute altogether. In fact, you'll never see anything having to do with payments on a dispute. to a collection company coming out of Credit Versio. Wilson, again, the software is good. It worked for one of my items and it got removed. Great. Congratulations. One of the things that I know I touched on this just a little bit in the very beginning, but when we ran some stats on success rates and so forth in the system, we did two methods. One is what happens after people do a 1-round dispute, and what are the results when people go through a 4 rounds. And obviously people who go through 4 rounds saw a lot bigger of an improvement than those who just did 1. And that's going to apply to no matter what you do, whether you do your own credit repair, you buy templates, or you hire a company. The longer you go through the process, the more pressure, I guess, for lack of a better word, you're putting on the credit bureau and the data furnisher to respond to not just the initial nature of the dispute, but whatever changes are taking place during that process. And the question is, why do things not come off on dispute number 1 and 2, but they come off on 3 and 4 or 5? Well, a lot of times because the data is changing, the creditor is really trying to figure out what's going on. They may update it in a way on one bureau that creates a problem on another. So, or it might take them 3 months to figure out that they can't verify the information. Maybe they were just kind of blowing you off on the first round, or maybe first 2 rounds. So what I would encourage you to do, Wilson, is just make sure you do your 4 rounds. Look at your 5th round too, because Credit Versio finds errors on round 5 all the time. So just go through the whole process. And then once you get to a place where you're looking at the dispute reasons and you don't see anything that's an error, Credit Versio doesn't find an error, everything looks right to you. You might not be totally happy with the fact that the account's still there, but at least you've done everything you can to get as much removed from your credit report that was not in compliance with the law. If it comes off, it was either erroneous, outdated, incomplete, or unverifiable. And those are all reasons for things to be either repaired or removed from your credit report. Okay. All right. Investor Gadget. These are really, really good questions today. I really appreciate it. Very, very good. I sent a well-written dispute letter to the bureaus. Responded with consumers deceased. How could this happen? And is it normal, or should I send round 2? Oh, hold on a second here. Okay. So the mother deceased, you're co-signed on with her. Is that? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Let's see. Let me just read this one more time. You might even just call them. Now, were you? See, here's where things can be a little different. I would give you a different answer. Were you a co-signer or were you an authorized user? If you're a co-signer on the debt, then I don't think that it matters that one party is deceased. You're the co-signer. So it's just like, here's a story that I've heard, I don't know how many dozens, maybe hundreds of times in the 10 years I've been doing this, is the parent that, calls up and I have a consultation with, and they co-signed for their kid's student loan or their car, and the kid's not making the payment. Now the late payments are all over the parent's credit report. Is it the parent's fault? Well, hold on, that's not the question. The question is, are the parents responsible? And the answer is yes, because they co-signed. They are an additional security to that loan. They agreed that regardless of which party is in possession, that both of them are financially responsible for the debt. I don't think that your mother having passed is something that's going to be a causation for the debt to not be what it is. Also, should I send dispute multiple items or just one per item? Yeah. So one of the things that I talk about, in fact, it's in the first video, in the tutorial videos, is you want to include everything on one letter. Again, remember, I'm big on credit repair myth, and that's one of them. Like, you don't want to put all your items on one letter. Of course you do. Why wouldn't you? Why would you make a certain letter, an individual letter for each item? I actually had one of the guys that worked for or ran the dispute division for TransUnion, the West Coast dispute division for TransUnion. I asked him about that. He's like, "Yeah, don't." He's like, "Don't do that. That's just going to irritate us." Those were his exact words. So he goes, "Put everything on one letter. Doesn't make sense to send a bunch of different letters." Okay. The dispute was on an item that I owned myself, not co-signed for. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, very good. So where we are coming down, oh my gosh, we are. That was a fast. That was a fast hour. That was really fast. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Great questions. I honestly intended to do a really thorough walkthrough. I was going to create some dispute letters for you. I was going to walk you through the account back end of Credit Versio, but we didn't even get to that, did we? We had great questions. Thank you so much. I'm glad you asked them. Okay. Thank you for all your help. Your lives are great. I'll be here every Wednesday if I can. Look forward to having you. I like that car in the background. What is that? Is that a Model S? It looks like a red Model S. That is a beautiful car. All right. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it. Now, if you're watching this on the replay, I can't see your comments on YouTube for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. But on Facebook, I can. So if you're watching a replay, feel free to post a comment. I always swing back around and answer them. And then until next week, thank you so much, and we'll see you next Wednesday.